Thank you very much. My name is Mathew Nyasanyu. I'm a doctor of public health at Nottingham Trent University, where I'm a senior lecturer. So just also to say that I've got my colleagues there, Sally and Michael. Now I'm presenting this on behalf of other colleagues who could not make it here. One works for the Department of Education in South Africa, and a colleague at the University of West London in UK. Next, please. So, talking about, did he show the topic? Okay. Yes. So yes, definitely, that's the topic for you. So move to the next place. So for some background, young women living in low and middle income countries are disproportionately impacted upon by mental health. And this is due to a number of issues, which also include lower access to health services, barriers through systemic gender discrimination, stigma, and violence, which is also ingrained in our communities. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa, the issues are exacerbated by weak health infrastructure, which is also coupled by other disadvantages which are in the community itself. More so, this makes it very difficult for the children of young women and also their families, as this is a sensitive issue in many sub-Saharan African communities. Now, this research was set to explore the barriers to mental health services among young women who were living in a rural setup in Zimbabwe. Now, as for the methodology, this study utilized an explorative qualitative study. As you know that an explorative qualitative study seeks not to find solutions to the problem, but to understand the problem so as probably to trigger more thinking around how to solve the problem in future. So in total, we actually interviewed 25 young women who were accessing mental health services in the local treatment centers in Sanyati. These were face-to-face interviews that lasted more than 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how they were engaging. This study was underpinned by the silences framework. So I might also want to highlight that the silences framework is a framework that is used to research issues among marginalized groups, or it is also a framework that can be used to research marginalized or sensitive issues that are normally not covered by the mainstream research groups. Now, we used a thematic analysis which was underpinned by the 4 stages of the silence framework. So within that, the silences framework has a clear explanation on how to look at data, especially qualitative data. So we move on to the findings. What were the key findings? So the study found that the young women reported feared stigma, so they wouldn't engage with the local treatment centers. Some of them said that if they are seen accessing mental health services, they are going to be branded made people, and hence that will hang upon them in the rest of their lives, and this may also impact on life chances in terms of acquiring opportunities. Yes, so the next one was blame for the condition. So as I have said earlier on, mental health in many communities in sub-Saharan Africa is seen as a stigmatized condition. Many communities do blame the person who is actually suffering from the problem more than finding the solution to the problem. And there are a number of unorthodox causes that are attributed, ranging from bad spirits to witchcraft, which has never been helpful for the young people, for the young women living in Sanyati. There was also gender discrimination. Again, as you would know, women are more likely to be disadvantaged when they are compared with men, especially in many sub-Saharan African communities. And this systematic discrimination, where women sometimes seek the permission of their spouses to go and access services, becomes quite very difficult, and many spouses or partners would not approve their spouse to go and actually access mental health services, and they will say this is an embarrassment to me, and they use that patriarchal power to stop the women from accessing the services. And that is also joined with patriarchy. The women had to play what the men think a good woman would be like. A good woman should not be seen accessing mental health services. If you are accessing mental health services, you are likely to be mad. So you are not a woman who should be in a community, which is quite very, very worrying. And then there was a lack of confidentiality within the treatment centers. These people live in a closed area, and so sometimes this will be shared. So lack of professionalism within the communities also led to young women refraining from accessing the services. There was also some lack of knowledge about mental health, where mental health was actually interpreted as something that can actually affect a person who has got a problem, not as something that can affect any member of the community. So that misunderstanding was actually shifted to the young women, and the young women would actually believe that. And so all what was happening there was lack of knowledge, which then refrained the young women from accessing the services. So if we can move to the last. Now, in conclusion, we found out that there is need to empower young women, to enable them to access mental health, to enable them to actually challenge the systemic oppressive structures that are endemic in our communities. And there's also need to break the silences on mental health and normalize seeking of mental health services for all communities, not only the young women. Thank you so much.